There's the chat, and we'll see if you do have a question. And Will also is always throwing in some wisdom and ideas as well. So we're very thankful for Will being with us. Why don't we go ahead and I'll open us in prayer, and then we will turn it over to Leanna. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, especially this time as our schools start and our educational ministries are open throughout the United States and around the world, proclaiming your gospel message. We ask that you be with all of our educators and staff members and all of those who serve in our Lutheran schools. Keep them, guard them, watch over them, give them excitement, and also give them rest during the school year as they do their work all to your glory. We ask that you be with us this afternoon as we talk about admissions and enrollment and bringing people into our awesome schools so that they can know you and have great relationships first and foremost with you and grow in their faith, and then also the relationships that we know are built in our Lutheran schools first and foremost is we always hear about the family atmosphere. Guide us in all things, and may we always do all to your glory. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. So, Leanna, today we're talking about your competition is you. Maybe an interesting topic and maybe something that people are wondering about a little bit. Well, what does that mean that you're competing against yourself? So, great topic, great ideas. Go ahead and kick it off and tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. So I think I just hope today that some of these thoughts might be provoking in regards to how you think about things, and I'm just prayerful that maybe something piques your interest and maybe teaches you something new. But I think we all know and understand that Christian education is competitive, and it's getting more and more so every day. And I think it's super easy for us to compare ourselves to others, when in reality, our competition is our own selves. And so I've just kind of broken down some thoughts into three different topic ideas: people, product, mission, and messaging. And I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail about those things.
I hate to jump in early, Leanna, but you just triggered something, opportunity. I mean, our schools have great opportunity right now. A survey just came out where 40% of individuals who were not interested before in a non-public school religious option now have an interest. So what we're talking about here in admissions and enrollment, incredibly important, and we have at this point in time a lot of people who are willing to hear about us, to check us out, and to come in. We need to capture that opportunity.
Yes, I agree. Oops. So I put this picture in here just because I think one of the most important things that our Lutheran schools can do is have a great product, and that means the right people. And so this would not necessarily be under my umbrella of responsibilities, but I think our administrators need to really be, purposeful when they're hiring their people, because the people are the product that we sell. It's not the other things. It's that core group of individuals that are what must be excellent in order for people to buy into our mission. So I just like that picture. That kind of just represents how important our people are. People don't buy what you do, they buy why we do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. And Simon Sinek is just a writer, he's a presenter, and I like to reference some of his stuff because I think it makes a lot of sense. And when you put it into the Christian Lutheran school context, I think it works really well. So the Golden Circle is a principle of Simon's that has, corporate, qualifications, but also it works for us as well. So the Golden Circle just kind of simply shows how you prioritize things. So in this example, it's the what, the how, and the why. You're starting with the what and moving towards the why. And so for a Christian school, what that would be like if you were to diagram your institution, starting with the what would be that we're a Christian school, moving to the how, we teach kids about God and His Word, and then moving to the why would be, do you want to enroll? The Golden Circle for you, starting with the why first, looks a little bit different. And I think how Lutheran schools should sort of view it. We believe in transforming the lives of students. That's our why. We do it by teaching kids about God and His Word, and we do it in a Christian school. So that looks and feels a lot different than starting with the what.
And I would say that why, our Lutheran schools are all about integrating the faith in everything that we do. So what a great opportunity to discuss that it's in the classroom, it's in every subject area, it's in our athletics, our co-curricular activities, our plays. It is pervasive. So that why should be the focus and the lead, because it does layer everything else on top of that. That's clearly the foundation.
And I think a lot of times the why can be found in your mission statement, and sometimes those can be dated and maybe need to be looked at. But a lot of times the why is going to be represented in that mission statement, that you have.
And if it's not, you should probably check it
Right.
out.
Right, exactly. And so I think there's some messaging that can transcend from the way that we are viewing our story. So the why of what we do. There's a couple different ways. It's the story and the messaging. So a commodity is a product or service that is indistinguishable from ones manufactured or provided by competing companies, and that therefore sell primarily on the basis of price rather than quality or style. And so I just used an example of batteries, obviously familiar to all of us. When you're shopping for a battery, you're not necessarily, looking for the best possible battery per se. You're going to look for what's cheap, what's convenient, what's at the store that you're currently at, and what you can grab, in an easy way. They're all basically the same. They have the same, purpose, and basically all work the same, but, it's just pretty much what is convenient. Another such commodity would be like gas stations. And I know you can separate some of those out for being better than others, but I know for my own self, if I'm out and about and I'm running on empty, I'm going to stop at the most convenient gas station. That I'm not necessarily going to shop around and try to find the cheapest. I'm just going to grab whatever is available. This is an example of another commodity in our secular world. And so when you look at the educational world, the biggest commodity that we have is the public school. And so when families are shopping for schools, if you're going to compare and contrast prices, obviously they're going to go for the public school because that one is free. So we as a Lutheran school, I think, need to stop thinking like a commodity and more like a unique service. And so I asked Al this question earlier too, but what do you think insurance is? Do you think it's a unique service or do you think it's a commodity?
I think anything is unique service.
Yeah.
You can turn into that.
Yeah, and so when I was thinking about insurances, and I think in the insurance world, they understand the audience, and that so a lot of insurance companies are just going to give you the fastest, like a Geico, 15 minutes, 15%. It's all about how fast you can get it and the cheapest price. But if you look at an AAL or a Thrivent, they're the type of company that came to your home and sat with the customer and got to know you and your story and what you were looking for. So insurance could be both a commodity and a unique service. But I think that you'll remember the unique service insurance agencies over the other ones, like State Farm these days. Jake from State Farm is going to be that person who's up in the middle of the night, to talk to you. So a unique service is very, very different than a commodity, and I think it's important that our Lutheran schools identify themselves as a unique service versus a commodity. And so this just kind of compares and contrasts those two words used to describe two different types of products. A commodity is a price and a convenience. Features are crucial. We're one of many. Read about us. So when you put that in a school context, it's going to be price shopping. You're going to find all you need to find on the website. You don't need to connect with anybody on a personal basis. You're one of many options, and that's sort of how you view a commodity. And then a unique service is value that connects to a need. Customer service is crucial. We're one of a kind. Come visit us to know us. And so I think it's pretty obvious why a Lutheran school needs to see themselves as a unique service, versus a commodity.
So back in my days of teaching, I used to teach economics. We talked a lot about commodity and service and gas stations. Which one will you go to? Is it based on price? Is it based on convenience, and how do you drive customers in? And I think you hit right on it on this unique service. One of the things that I had someone that taught with me, and he was from the banking world, did a great job. And one of the statements that he brought in that came from that world was to always think like a customer and act like an owner. So you're always thinking about what are our unique services? What's our why? How do we show that to people? And then acting like an owner, well, you have finite resources. You only have so much money to go around. We know finances of Lutheran schools, so spend it wisely. But I think if you are looking at that unique service, you tend to be more financially stable, and you're putting the resources where they really need to go versus looking at a commodity where you're not really as acutely aware of the finances and how they're being spent.
And I think there's a danger too where a Lutheran school or a Christian school, private school, whatever, doesn't view themselves necessarily as a business, as a product that is being sold, because it doesn't really feel right to say that because we're people, and that it just feels a little funny to say it that way, but we are. And so you have to be able to promote yourself accordingly. So it's important not to forget that we are a business too. So differentiation is kind of just, I love this world because it focuses on what makes you different. And each one of our schools is so unique and wonderful in a different way. And we have that story to tell. And so there's a couple different kind of trendy marketing terms that I've worked with other marketing individuals, and because admissions and marketing walk so closely hand in hand, this has just been kind of how we speak about, thinking through the story we tell and what that looks like. So there's a couple different ways that it's done. Some are better than others, but the Me Too branding is a pretty common way for schools, to kind of market themselves. You're copying what other schools do in order to remain competitive. You're looking at your neighbor and saying, they do that, well, so do I. And that isn't necessarily going to set you apart from the competition because it keeps you in that same pool with everybody else on the same playing field. So that's kind of what Me Too branding is. And then flanking is a little bit different. It creates experiences that are different and hard for other schools to replicate. So that's setting yourself apart from your competitor. And so it's not degrading your competitor, but it is acknowledging what they do that maybe isn't as positive necessarily as what you do, and kind of capitalizing on that because you do it better or different. So flanking is just kind of that. And I had a funny commercial, and I had a little bit of trouble playing it earlier, but I'm going to give it a shot now because it kind of just gives a visual as to what that looks like.
Found it. Appliances.
Now we just need a guy.
I'm from fertilizer. You guys want to talk about fertilizer?
No.
Don't go it alone. Sears appliance experts are here to help you find the top brands, including Kenmore. Sears, house experts for homeowners.
Commercial, but it definitely shows a little bit about how Sears understood that they needed to set themselves apart from the big name stores, like the Home Depots, the Lowe's, etc. They had to differentiate themselves. They had to show why they do something better and different than those big ticket stores who obviously, kind of garner the market. And so that would be flanking. They're able to show that they do it differently, and it's hard for other people to replicate that. There's a really good quote by Walt Disney that I love, and I just think it just says a lot about being successful in with this. So to be successful, you must be unique. You must be so different that if people want what you have, they must come to you to get it. And that quote sort of makes me smile because when I think about our Lutheran schools, I think about the stories that we have to tell. And everyone has a different story, different strength. And it's just so important to get it out there so that people know, that that's yours. And it makes them want to come to you. So I like that quote because I think it's very relevant. So you have to have that difference that parents care about. They're not sending a child per se to your school because of the cool fancy building. Lots of schools have cool fancy buildings, and they're sending it because of the people there and because of the way, the why behind what you do. And I just think it's really important that, that's the story your school is telling.
I think that's important too because we have some great facilities out there, but even our top facilities at a top Lutheran school will not compete against the facilities
Right.
of a public school. I think about the $75 million football stadium built by a public school in Texas. We're never going to build a $75 million football stadium, nor should we.
Right.
Well, maybe not. But think of really who you are and what that difference is, as you're hitting on here. We have so many great things going on. Focus on those. And Lutheran schools are built on the relationships. They're built on, there's the whole discussion about personalized learning that's been out there now for the last few years. I say personalized learning at Lutheran schools has been there forever because teachers know each student and they recognize each student as fearfully and wonderfully made, and that's a unique individual created by God who has specific talents and abilities. And as a Lutheran educator, I'm called to grow those as the person, the individual, not just in my class, but all the way around. And we get to look at it through that Christian lens of what we're doing and to show and talk about that in everything that we do. That is a significant differentiator, and that gospel message that's pervasive in everything that we do. We don't need a $75 million football stadium. Now we need co-curriculars and we need those activities that will grow the student, but we have so much going on that we need to let people know about.
Well, and I'm sure those of you who have given visits to a new family, you know that when you're walking around the building and you're showing them spaces and introducing teachers, that's all fine and good. But I think the crux of the matter is when you really are talking to that parent, they're so concerned about their child having a positive experience and being seen and loved. And I think that's our why, right? That's why people are coming to us, because we are reminding them and encouraging them that we are going to remind their kids daily that they're a child of God, loved and saved by Jesus. That's why we do what we do. And then everything else kind of transcends from that. And so when we're doing that in an excellent fashion, then our parents sense that and they stop to care. They stop caring as much about all the other stuff because this is their kid that they want to turn into, great adults someday. And so, I feel like, all the fancy, shiny stuff kind of pales in comparison when you really get to the crux of what families are looking for when you're visiting with them. It's different.
Now, it doesn't mean that our buildings should fall apart. We don't
Correct.
pay attention to those. That is part of our accountability and what we do to make that a great experience. But as you've said so well, it is the experience. Let them talk to the students. Let them talk to the educators. And that's the you. And that's you competing against you. Because it's that culture, it's that Christ-centered culture that we have at our Lutheran school.
And when your why is prevalent and your people know your why and everybody's on board with your why, all those other things, clean buildings, positive attitudes, all of the, creativity, it just comes from that because there's joy in the workplace and there's, encouragement. So I think a lot of that comes from your why. And I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, sitting down with your staffs and having a conversation. I've done that before where I've gathered the teachers in my school to try to learn from them so I can hear what they think is important, what they think is going well, what do we do well? Because a lot of times the behind the scenes, feet on the ground, people know that far better than I ever will. And so speaking with them and kind of coming up with the why together and what you do best together is awesome because then everybody's collaborating in that regard because the product is not just me telling them about it, it's getting to show everybody participating in the product. So I think it's super important to, garner your team to do that together.
I think that's a great point. A lot of times we're looking at, and speaking as a former administrator, what is a good professional development topic to kick off the school year? What are some things that we can do to get excitement going, and kicking everything off? And I think one of those is having a day to talk about your why, hear from everybody, and as an entire school community, find that why and how you tell that story to others. I'm a big believer in, okay, you have your why, but now how can you tell that story effectively and efficiently? You're not going to have a half an hour to tell that story all the time, or you won't have everyone coming through your door saying, oh, I want to hear about your why. So develop that into your elevator speech. And if you do that effectively, you will have a lot of people coming in
Yeah.
and giving you that opportunity. I hear all the time from school administrators, from admission people and principals. And what they'll say is, all we have to do is get them in the door.
For sure.
And then it's the experience, right? Well, to get them in the door, it's that differentiation.
Yes.
It's competing against you, it's identifying the why, and it's being able to effectively tell others that why so they do come in the door.
And not to backpedal, but the commodity versus the unique service is the whole customer service mentality too. A commodity has terrible customer service. You're not going to remember who you spoke with. You're not going to remember much about that experience. But in a unique service, you're going to say, wow, that person I talked to on the phone was so nice. Or wow, I mean, I just paid a bill for my daughter's wedding. And the gentleman that I spoke to on the phone, I'm going to remember his name. I'm going to remember his questions that he asked about me, how kind and considerate he was, because the customer service was different than other places I've dealt with. So there's a big, customer service is a huge part of being a unique service, and getting them on campus is a step to getting to show them, that customer service piece of things.
Which we excel at. Yeah, and I, going back to insurance, I just had for my hailstorm we had around here, a new roof put on, and the same thing. Commodity, I could go anywhere and get that done. In fact, people are clamoring all over to come and sell their services. The individual I went with, I had a relationship with before, because when we moved in the house, we had an issue with our roof, and he came out, fixed it right away. So he's the first person I went to.
Yeah.
It's that relationship. Lutheran schools, we hear it all the time, relationship, family. You don't just allow that to be inside the doors.
Right.
You need to get that outside so that people hear that message from the students, from the educators, from alumni. That's how you build this whole idea of being a service and not a commodity, so that people get to know who you are and that experience that drives them inside.
And in this crazy world right now, I feel like your statistic of 40% more families that haven't explored private school education are now doing that. It's because it just feels different, and I think that they're willing to take that step and pay to get something different, and I think that's a pretty big deal. It's a tremendous opportunity.
Absolutely. Great opportunity, and we need to take advantage of it.
Yes, right.
I mean, we're called to proclaim the gospel message. We have 40% of the people that wouldn't look at us before that will now, and we have that opportunity to bring them in and share the gospel.
Super cool.
Yeah, take advantage.
Yeah.
I like to divert us off of slides from time to time.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
And my slides were just a guide anyway. The last slide just is thought-provoking. What's your story? Maybe you guys haven't taken the opportunity to sit down and really kind of diagram what your story, what your school's story is. And I think it's just a super important exercise to do. And I like the word story because I like to read, I like to learn. And so I think story is just sort of a fun way to think about, what you do and why you do it.
Yeah, and really, sometimes I see these memes and everything, and I'm not a big fan of some of these things, but in our Lutheran schools, you see it, his story, and really it is his story as we're living it out in our Lutheran schools. One of the things we talked about during our Tuesday Talks, I always want to say talk about it Tuesday, but we'll maybe change the name on that to Tuesday Talks. In that communication with Dave Kushel, we talked about the fact of capturing throughout the school year your story, because your story is unfolding one of the great things about being in education and at a school, it's brand new every year. I mean, you come in August and it's a brand new year. Whatever happened last year, you never know what's going to happen this year. There are some things that are similar and everything else, but it always unfolds a little bit differently. So it's exciting to see how it does unfold throughout that school year and how the students grow and the events that you have and the excitement that occurs throughout the year. Capture those, because that is the capturing of the differentiator of what's going on and how it unfolds, and then present that, one, to those who are there currently, Your
Right,
students
to
get to see
validate,
that and hear about it. Your board members, your educators get to look back at all the wonderful, great things, success throughout the
Yeah.
school year that maybe you forget about because you do move on and you're always rushing toward the end. And then capture that for those future families as well. So don't forget throughout the school year, make sure that you mark those moments, capture those with photos, with video, with stories. So when something occurs, ask the student, ask the teacher, ask the drama person, the coach, ask football coach, the track coach. Capture all of these things and put it together for your story that you write.
Yes. And I'm sure you've heard the Christian song, Our Story, His Glory.
Yes.
Which is cool too, because then you're
Yes.
able to show how God's glorified in what you're doing at your school too. So
Exactly. And what a great way to do that and to put that together and each year reflect on it at the end of the year, all those wonderful accomplishments. Those accomplishments take many different forms each and every year.
And it's also a great reminder for your teachers to see all the fantastic things that happened and all the positives, to acknowledge and give them some accolades for what's been done, because then you get the retention of your staff as well, which is equally as important as the retention of your family. So,
And a great way to thank your faculty throughout the
Yes.
school year is to take and capture some of those photos of these events and those occurrences and put those into words and run those off, give it to them as a thank you note of, here you are in action. We give thanks for your ministry as it unfolds throughout the school year. So many things that you can do with that.
yeah, true.
And Will, do we have any questions? Otherwise, I got a couple more things that I'm going to throw out. I think I always
Perfect.
do, right? There's a Association of Christian Schools International did a study of 3,000 Christian schools. A lot of times they will throw Lutheran schools in that and have that study. We haven't done that specifically with our Lutheran schools, but that's a pretty good number, 3,000. You get a lot of information out of that. Some of the elements that they pulled from those schools, one, be distinctive. That's what we're talking about here. You're competing against you. Be distinctive of who you are and lean into that. I think sometimes Lutheran schools, and maybe it's because of downturn in enrollment, we know now that in our Lutheran schools, our school statistics tell us 60% of our students in our Lutheran schools are not Lutheran, of whether it be LCMS or another Lutheran denomination. Great outreach opportunity with that, obviously. Maybe sometimes we are concerned about enrollment, and we think, well, maybe we should tone that down a little bit, and maybe people won't look at us if we say that we're Lutheran, or we talk about religion class, or you have to attend chapel. This study tells us just the opposite, and what we already know in our hearts too, and that is be distinctive. We're Lutheran schools. Compete against you by saying we are a Lutheran school. That's our foundation. That's our why. And we have that ability to have that gospel message be pervasive through, again, everything that we do, all of our events, all of our activities, all of our classroom, religion class, chapel message, and everything else. I think this study, again, allows us to point to that fact of be who you are, be who you're called to be, and be who your community needs you to be as well. And communities need Lutheran schools. We know that throughout. We also know, there are communities right now that would love to see a Lutheran school come to their community because they know what it brings. They know our graduates, and I'm talking graduates throughout, all the way through high school or after 8th grade. You talk to public schools where we don't have a Lutheran high school in that community. They love our Lutheran school kids that are coming in because they know. And that's because of what we do, and we're very distinctive in that. So lean into it would be my message.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity. And then also the fact of inside of our Lutheran schools, again, I don't think we can sell this point enough, and that is be who you're called to be and build those relationships that are Christ-centered, and that's the experience that people have. That's why they see us not as a commodity, and it's much more than a school. There's so much more going on, and it's a community that's built. And again, we go out on National Lutheran School Accreditation visits all the time, and we always hear relationships. It's a family here. Absolutely, it should be, because we are. We are a Christ-centered environment of educational excellence, and it is a family environment centered on Christ. So this, lean into that. I mentioned before in our conversation today, I always love this from John Wooden, who famous basketball coach at UCLA, and Wooden's Pyramid of Success, and John Wooden, who had 10 national championships in basketball and still is revered today as the coach. And one of his players, I can't remember, it was either Bill Walton or Lou Alcindor, who changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, asked him about the scouting report for the team that they were going to play. And he looked at him and he said, "We don't scout." And basically what he was telling him is, you as a team need to come together and live up to your potential and to execute as a team. And if you do that, we don't have to worry about what the other team is doing.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great message for us as Lutheran schools. He has called us to be who we are, and we have a great opportunity and develop into that Lutheran school that you're called to be. And I used to say this all the time as the district education executive of Missouri. I still say it today as I go around the country and see a bunch of other Lutheran schools outside of the Missouri district now. Each school is like a child. Each one of our children, we grow and mold and they become their own person, their own personality. Each one has their own unique gifts and talents, and we look to see how we can develop those as that individual. It's the same thing in our Lutheran schools. Each one is like that child. We love them all equally. We have that calling to develop them and allow them to grow and become the person they're called to be. Same thing with the Lutheran school. Each one develops its own personality. Each one has its own unique gifts and talents and culture. Develop that. Let that grow and let it shine and come out and be who you're called to be.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah. Will wrote it down for me. He scripted that out. Yes, we need a Lutheran
Shoot,
chat
that's-
GPT. Oh. Do we have any questions or otherwise?
No.
Leanna's got a big week ahead next week. She's got a wedding to go to and
Kid going to college?
Son going off to college, yeah. So there's a lot going on.
There is a lot.
Yeah.
Good things.
Absolutely, great things. Her son-in-law to be is just installed as a Lutheran school teacher as well, so
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Super exciting.
Wow, a lot of awesome things that are happening. So blessings to you always, but especially next week, and the travels and the wedding and
Thank
all
you.
those events that are taking place. And I know it will all be exciting, and may you have time in the moment to really experience it too, because that's a challenge, right? There's so much activity, so much going on.
Yeah. I won't
But you
miss
have
it.
to experience all of that as well. So blessings to you and your family and all that's happening, and a special blessing to your new son-in-law and your daughter on their marriage as well.
Thank you.
With that, we'll wrap up this episode of Follow Up Friday, all about admissions and enrollment. Join us next time, and we have one coming up in September. And then we also have a series kicking off in September on new teacher support and encouragement. I know that we have Michaela was Willoughby, but she was married this summer, and I got to remember her last name. I need to look that up at some point here. And Esther Dunlop, who's now Esther Edwards. So both of them got married over the summer, but they will be doing monthly episodes on new teacher support and encouragement. We do encourage you, if you know a new teacher, or if you know a teacher who wants to join. They don't necessarily have to be new. They can be have experience of 25, 50 years, you name it. we love to have them join us on that as well. Blessings to you on the day, and especially blessings to you on the school year ahead.